Well, good morning and thanks for sticking around. It is about 10, like I said, 10:15. When I was asked to preach, I was asked to preach for the service. And then about 4 days later, I got an email saying, could you also do Bible study? And that I said no to, because we loaded up the truck to move on Friday, was it? So we kind of had a busy week going on, so I'm like, I'm not doing that too. I go, but I will do a Q&A discussion type thing, because there's no prep involved for me other than just to keep breathing and talking. So that's why we were here. Professor Cook did offer to give me his outline for Romans 16, and I just ignored that email. So I'm not doing that right now. So may God bless our time together. May it be fruitful to us and for me, and may good conversation come from it that helps out as we go forward. Do I need a different microphone? Was that for? On, right? Yeah, I thought I did.
To help with hearing each other and for anyone following online,
Okay, and then I'll try to repeat questions as they come to me, unlike the sports guys when they have their interviews at the end of games and whatnot. So, wow, when did it start? Back in early January, I had a phone call from a gentleman named Paul Prangy, Pastor Paul Prangy, and he called me and said, hey, Aaron, the governing board of MLC is going to call for this position, and we're looking for somebody that's, has a foot in the urban ministry that understands cultural issues, ethnic issues, and do you know anybody in Milwaukee area that fits that other than you? That's the exact quote I got from, other than you. And I paused and I said, Paul, are you fishing or are you genuinely asking? He said, yes. And so at that point in time, I knew it was on the radar that this call was coming out. And I went home and talked to my wife, and we talked about this call where we're supposed to be this cultural diversity coordinator on MLC's campus or with MLC. And we talked about it. And at first, we were discussing, because we're 47, I'm 47, she's a young 46. And we're so young, and we thought, we could just do it where I do part-time there, part-time here. Yeah. It made sense financially, it made sense economically and house-wise, because we bought a house that we enjoyed, a neighborhood that we liked. Milwaukee is home. Milwaukee is where there's diversity in our Senate, at least of the African-American variety of diversity. So why we want to leave here? Why not just do 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there? And as we talked about it out loud to each other, the more ridiculous it sounded for our marriage to do that. And so we knew that wasn't going to be the option. And that was before I even had the call. I talked to my brother, who I trust thoroughly. He's 4 years older than me. Went through, like I did, St. Marcus, and then through prep, ended up going to Madison. And so he knows the system somewhat. And he said to me, as he's out in Pittsburgh now, he goes, it sounds like what they're asking you to do is a Senate call, not a college call. And I said, but Art, that call isn't out there. And so those are some of the things going around in my head when I got this call to be cultural diversity coordinator. How big, how small, how much time on campus? Can it be a both and? And then I talked to a few other people, and so that's where I'm at now. I went to my cousin, who's my age, who teaches at a high school in Tennessee, not Wells. He's a Christian man, but he doesn't have any foot in our system. And I showed him the call packet that I got when I got the call, and he read through it, and he goes, what are they asking you to do? It was that wide open. It's vague because we never had that position before. And so it's kind of the exciting thing of being able to create something. It's a scary thing of trying to create something, right? I'm not an artist. That's my wife. She's an art teacher by trade, and I've not painted more than stick figures in my life. But I'm imagining when you get your canvas of whatever, to do whatever with, and it's empty, that can be an exciting time until there's a deadline. And then it becomes, what do I do now? And so that's where I'm at in my thought and process of, it's exciting. What do we do now? So what do I do now? Help me out here. What does the diversity coordinator, the cultural diversity coordinator, MLC, what should I be focused on? What are your suggestions? Yes, ma'am, in the black.
Okay. I think given the fact that we had a son who went there for a few years, I would start with staff,
Okay, so staff.
campus staff, teachers, professors, admin.
So you mean like making
Bring
them
'em up to
making
speed.
them more diverse?
Bring them up to speed.
Okay, all right. Bring them up to speed in how what they say, what they do, how they respond.
Correct.
All of that, yeah.
Welcoming. Who are you serving at the school? How do we find out about people's experiences people of color, their experiences as they've been on campus? Why did they leave? Why did they stay?
So you want me to do some research?
Correct.
All right. So find out why. And it seems to be more difficult for some who have gone there to not finish, or even if they finish, to say, I didn't enjoy it. Why is that? Okay. I'll get a research team together, a crack research team. Yes.
Is this for the pastoral track and the teacher track?
This is for the campus, so everybody. So if the question was, is this for the pastoral track or the teacher track? My understanding is for the entire campus. And as Amy put it, she said start with the staff, that's part of the campus, and then you have the student body, another segment of the campus, and so the time is there, yeah.
Again, your role is wide open, so we don't know exactly what it will entail, but will you be, going around to our area Lutheran high schools, our prep schools, and, trying to encourage those of diverse backgrounds to come out to MLC? In other words, how do we get more diversity on the campus?
So my former call at Fairview, I want to make sure I give a shout out to Fairview Lutheran Church and thank them for allowing me the flexibility they have over the last 6 years. Over the last 6 years, I've been able to go to MLS at least once a year, prep, whenever they called and asked to me to go up there, which is only an hour away. I've gone to grade schools. Even when I was at Wisco, I did that same thing, so Wisco is part of that. So I've been doing that part personally for the last 12 years. When I was at Wisco, serving as campus pastor, I got into all the grade schools and did a devotion and was involved that way. But it wasn't intentionalized. There wasn't a program. It was just me going around going, hey, I'm black, and then moving on. So I think we got to intentionalize it more so that it's encouraging people to come who might feel uncomfortable in a setting that's not their setting. The reality is, growing up in Milwaukee, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, so don't take it that way. We are in a community that is segregated by culture, and I don't think it's always a bad thing. Growing up, my neighborhood was a black neighborhood, and that was fun. That was fine. My school was a black school, and that was fine. It didn't make us, I didn't feel any less important because I wasn't around non-black people, right? So if you're going to leave your neighborhood or your community where it's all of your kind, to go somewhere else where it's less of that by that dramatic amount, that changes the game. And what I think is, there's a lot to that, but I think the answer to your question is yes, but we have to make it a program and intentionalize it. You know, because you went through it, you wouldn't have been at Atonement without a pastor knocking on your family's door. It starts there. You don't start, as my wife says, you can encourage them when they're in the early childhood stages, they're K through 2. You can encourage children to become pastors and teachers even then. You don't start when they're in high school. By the time in high school, they've already found something that catches their eye of interest. So you encourage it early on. And not that you force them to, but that you put out there as an option. And I was going to ask Atonement, how many pastors has Atonement produced? that weren't children of other pastors? Who's the one? Hartman. Yep. Who's that?
There was another guy on a recent call list who is a son of atonement.
Okay.
His parents were not
Teachers, pastors. But that's the kind of the question that
my brother,
okay.
a pastor, and my folks are not.
Well, they're better than most people, but they're not.
But there are a handful.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it has to start, right? I mean, if and I told this, I think I told this to Henry Tyson a while back over at St. Marcus, because they have a lot of turnover with teachers. And one of the questions that has been asked since I was a little kid by my parents is, why don't we have more black teachers in the Wells? And the answer is, in order for us to have black teachers in the Wells, we have to send people to become teachers that happen to be black. So if a school wants to have 5 new teachers that understand urban ministry, then they need to be trying to figure out how do we send 5 up there so that we have people coming through that we know can either impact others around them or themselves come back. So if we're not sending people to become pastor teachers in our Senate, then we can't expect them to just sprout up. It doesn't work that way. You know, and in a place where it does work that way, when they just sprout up, you end up having more problems because the training is an important thing. Yeah, we can skip some of the steps, but overall the training is quality enough that over 125 years it's worked. Then we need to send kids up there, and that's why going there is worthwhile, I think, in my mind, for me, because I think it's the best thing we got going as far as training en masse teachers and pastors to go out to do their jobs. Now, the question is, how do we get them to be more understanding, more flexible, more culturally competent as they do it? And but I think it starts here. It starts with see some kids in 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade, and say, hey, let's go to New Ulm and visit. Let's go to Prep and visit. Let's go to Wisco and visit. Let's keep them in the pipeline so that they might come back and serve someday. Or even better than that, even more possible than that, they might impact their classmates who might come back and serve someday. And then their cultural competency will have been increased because they not just have a friend that's black, but they have a brother they would call, or a sister who happens to be a minority. That's where it is that way. Flags, you know, how do you feel? I mean, so he got his job offer around the same time I got mine. WLC and my MLC, and hopefully, you know, we get more chance to work together and talk together. He just can't call me before the kitchen closes at Kelly's. You got to wait till that happens, you know, and then we can talk, you know. But before then, how are you feeling about your position? What are you?
Lost. Kind of the same thing as you. Where do you start? What do you do?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it'll be a lot of learning and trying to figure out how to. I mean, ours are a little bit different. Yours is recruiting people more into the ministry. Mine is working with them while they're at Wisconsin Free College.
Yeah. I don't. So James Flagel, longtime atonement member, he's a WLC grad. He's gonna be a WLC. What's your title called? Director of Cultural Diversity. We just changed some letters around, right? And so we're gonna be figuring this out, and it's worthwhile because one of the things that happens when you get a call like this, I didn't know this until I got the call. You know, all of a sudden I got phone calls going, hey, soon-to-be Professor Robinson, you want to serve on this board or that board? And one other calls us from WLC to serve on the Board of Regents and be in that student life section so that we can really share and we can work together on that and I can learn from, because they've been doing it, I think, longer than MLC's been doing it with more diversity because they're closer to a diverse population and serving them. But then how can we do that overall? Yeah, Dean.
Just wondering, like, with the student teaching program that we have at MLC, would you like to see more of an emphasis of those kids spending some time in an urban environment? I know some of them do, but I think it's an option as to whether or not they feel comfortable serving in an urban environment. And my thing is, I think we expose all of our teachers to a bit of that environment. So when they do get calls to urban settings, it's not a foreign thing.
Okay, so I gotta tread lightly here. There's something about our urban training that I have a problem with. Okay. We train urban teachers, we train in urban like black children can't learn regularly. And that's frustrating for me. We treat urban like these children don't have the same faculties and possibilities of learning as their white counterparts. And so in our grade schools where we have, and even our high schools, we are treating these children and we are training teachers in a way that I think is counterproductive to them wanting to, one, know their Lord better, and then two, go and serve him later on. So until we can manipulate that to a better, more loving idea of what urban teaching would be, I'm not sure I want to send them back to urban because I don't like what I see in urban. You know, that when you come to urban teaching and you see children being treated like they're on a pipeline to prison in too many schools. And it's not just Wells schools, but it's I see it in Wells. I live in the Wells world. And so I don't want people to come and say, oh, this is what urban is, because Milwaukee is not every urban community. You know, Milwaukee is Milwaukee. We had our own problems. I mean, Milwaukee has problems that are uniquely Milwaukee, and so does Detroit, uniquely Detroit. So if you say, oh, go to urban and come to Milwaukee, and they get urban Milwaukee, but then they go to Phoenix, that's a different urban. So you kind of want to give them as many experiences as possible, and then the tools to be able to live in any environment with the competency of culture. I mean, back to that term, it's so broad, but it seems simple to me. You love your neighbor as yourself, take words and actions kind of possible way, and you listen more than you talk. I had to add that third one because I forgot about that one last time. Listen more than you talk. Because imagine you're 22 years old, you come out of whatever place in northern Wisconsin, and you get sent to a place to teach wherever you are, and you're telling a person who has a child that is at least 5, so let's say 5 years old, that means that person is at least, let's say that the child at 16, they're already your age, or in most cases older than you are, and they're raising a child, and you come at 22 with an education degree and say, this is how you should raise your child. Really? That's not being culturally sensitive to that person, and therefore you need to be able to listen first and say, you know, I'm new to this, I'm 22, how does it work in your family? What's your community like? Let me learn first. And then maybe in a couple of years, I might have enough in my pocket to say, this is what I think should happen because I've learned. But you go in there at 22. I mean, I remember being 26 as a young pastor. You know how much I knew about actual ministry? Not a lot. You know, I knew about what I was taught on the board, and we were still using the overhead projector at the time, you know, so that's how long ago it was. I didn't understand about how to work with a couple who was struggling in marriage. I had just gotten married. I didn't understand all of those things that I would eventually learn as I gained more knowledge of just life and ministry. So if you go in and say, well, I'm a young pastor, door down, we're going to do it this way, really? Or if you go to a school as a young teacher and say, you parents don't know, you parents, and don't start with the you anything, but you parents don't know how to raise your children, now you've made it an issue that maybe could have been avoided. So that kind of thing with the teachers, I would love to see them do more, but not necessarily in our system we currently have. I'm talking to some people, and what I'd love to do is do a student exchange with an HBCU, which is a historically black college university, where they get to take a course online at least within that context so that they hear different voices and different viewpoints about things in life, because that matters. This morning I had a dream about a cultural bus. And there's the old Richard Pryor movie where he's a bus driver for a bunch of kids that are orphans, you know? And so the cultural bus would be whatever culture it is, I'd be the bus driver, so it wouldn't be a bus, it'd be like a 12-passenger van because I'm not getting my CDL. But we'd get in that vehicle, and there'd be that group of individuals from Hispanic, Black, Native American, Korean, Chinese, whatever culture. They get in there, and I would say, this is your culture bus. Whatever you do in your culture that's legal, go ahead. And then they could have the music they wanted, the TV and whatever, and get off of campus and have have a moment to not be involved in German, Lutheran, MLC New Ulm. Because that's one of the problems, right? You go to one of our schools, and I know a song. I was never in choir. You can probably tell from my psalm today. I was never in choir. But I know a song called Sie leben hoch. Sie leben hoch, Sie leben hoch. You know how? Because it's part of the culture. You just get it. And I don't know the parts, but I can do it in parts. Next to a friend of mine that needs me because I know hoax, hoax, leben, hoax, hoax. And it's culture. So to get them to say, okay, let's just get out of this German culture for just a sec. We'll take a bus ride up to the Twin Cities. I got friends up there. We'll have a cookout. We'll have a grill, and we'll just be yourself, whatever it is you want to be for a moment. That is legal, mind you, and then come back. I asked a question about 15 years ago, and I don't know why I asked the question. I forget why. But the question that came to my mind, what is black culture? That's the question I had. I'm married to a white woman. I have kids who are biracial. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, Steve Canberra. I was like, what is black culture? I called my brother, what's black culture? And we talked. And it was just frustrating because people were talking about, I think it was the time of Obama's first run for presidency. People were talking about whether he was black or white or he was all whatever, you know. I'm like, so what is black culture? And the problem with cultural competency is no culture has the corner on any one thing. That being a good athlete isn't part of black culture. Whatever stereotype is out there isn't part of black culture. It might be more dominant in some places, but it's not the thing that makes that so you cannot dance, you can do all the opposites of stereotypes of what black culture is, and if you're born of two black parents, you're still black. You don't get to not be that culture because you don't do the things that are considered part of that. So part of cultural competency, to me, is going to be on the spectrum of gifts and abilities and attributes that we all have. Realize that applies to every culture. That every culture has the spectrum. And if I can get students to think that way instead of coming to an urban setting and going, wow, you run really fast, and always talking about that instead of, wow, that was a great math score. And not teach to a stereotype or believe in a stereotype and go, because one of the things that hurts African-American men especially is, or your boys especially is, teachers usually expect less from them. They expect less from them, so they teach them that way. As long as they're not being disruptive, they're fine. They get a C, that's fine. Don't ask for the B or the A. And that's not because the teachers are racist. I don't think it's because they are just teaching to what they think the stereotype is. And we got to stop doing that. But yeah, so those are some of the things that the cultural bus. I'm not sure that'll get a go, but we'll see. We can decorate it, just to get out, just to go for a ride. I do that sometimes personally myself. Like the other day, I was telling Damien, I was in my head, in my heart, feelings about leaving Milwaukee, my home. I grew up there, I got friends here, and I dropped the family off, and I just went for a drive, and I went through almost all of Milwaukee that I could think about. I went back to my home I grew up in. I went to St. Marcus, where I went to hit the lakefront. I just went, tears in the eyes, just emotionally, but it was my time to not be on, It wasn't about a cultural thing. It was just about my personal space thing. And so I could see kids wanting to have that kind of moment on campus saying, can we just leave? Yes, let's go. Get in the car, we'll ride. Get in the bus, we'll ride, and we'll come back. But you can't do it every day, but you can have moments. And then you make it something that's productive, not something that is just, too often college kids, when they want to do that escape, they escape into beer, alcohol, because that's what, the binge drinking starts in college. Well, what if we had another option other than just going to the local bar and spending too much money that you don't have? And so that'd be awesome. I love to do cultural events. Wisco does a civil rights tour. Something like that. I don't know if I'll do the same exact thing because there's parts of that I didn't enjoy, so I would tweak that a little bit, but do a tour of a cultural tour. and not just online, but actually going places. That kind of exposing the students on campus to what's like to be a minority sometime. Say part of your assignment is to go up to a place in the Twin Cities and go to an all-black congregation. And then tell me how you felt, and just have that experience. Because most people that are white haven't had to be a minority anywhere for a long period of time to know how uncomfortable or how much you compensate for that moment. And so part of understanding minority culture is realizing that just because someone's a minority says yes to what you're asking them to do isn't because they like it, but because they know they can get along faster without having to have the conversation about what they don't like. So having that. You had a question, sir?
It surprises me that I just realized this a few weeks ago, but and my comment is off of you speaking about the segregated neighborhood. I just woke up to the fact that we have a segregated school. Because of choice, we have like 98%, I would say, are African American students.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing, right?
Well, that's a whole another conversation. But it need not be a bad thing when it's done by one's own choosing, right? But what it doesn't do is if that group of children aren't exposed to things outside of their home or their school, that black neighborhood, then they're going to be limited in their future possibilities. I love my mom and dad both, and they exposed me and my brother and sister, the three of us, to life. I remember going up and seeing an opera at UWM because my mom wanted us to experience that. I remember seeing plays at North Division and seeing that, even though I wasn't an actor or play. My dad took us to places and showed us things so that we could see things outside of the east side of Milwaukee, outside of our neighborhood. If those children only experience their home and here, which are, let's say they're positive black communities. I don't want to say they're negative, they're positive. But then when they leave here to go out to UW-Madison or MLC, they're going to be like, why isn't it more like home? And I don't know the answer to this one. I have a thought, but I don't know the answer. Right now, African Americans are only 14% of the United States. That's kind of a small number to dictate terms of what changes things. Imagine having 100 people, having 14 of them to dictate what you're going to do next. That's a small percentage-wise. Now, there are others in there. You have the biracial that's getting their own numbers now and everything. But when you think about it that way, if you leave the cities or the places where you have a concentration of African Americans, then as an African American, you have to adapt to that community. I mean, there are like whole states where we're probably less than 1%. So when you think about the totality of America, you've got to live in the reality, not in just your bubble. In my bubble, I can have it my way. I can go to my neighborhood and have it my way. Have my own celebrations. I can have my own stuff. Well, I go to someone else's neighborhood. I can't expect them to have what I have. A buddy of mine, Brian Klebb, grew up in Houston, Texas, and I think they had was a Big Red down there, the soda. I hadn't heard of it before, but it's just a red pop. When he came up to Wisconsin for high school, he was like, I went to a store, they didn't have any Big Red. I'm like, Ryan, we got some Fanta, and we got some, we got other red sodas. He wanted his Big Red. And you know what the store didn't do? They didn't order Big Red for one person. They said, sorry, we've got other sodas. And so you can go from one place to another and hope it's there, but if it's not there, unless you're willing to be a huge change maker, could you imagine going to a historically black college university and then going there from your German background, German-American background, or German background, say, can we have a course on Martin Luther right now? Martin Luther King? No. Martin Luther, the German reformer, because that's part of my heritage, and I want to know that even though I came to your school. And what would you think they'd say to you? So I think as we look at the totality of things, we got to say we can't expect everything to be as I would like it to be just because of my background. We live it together. Can we incorporate some? And so it's kind of the whole Juneteenth Day celebration thing. I've been celebrating it all my life. I didn't need it to be a federal holiday. I'm okay with it being a federal holiday. I'm not against it, but I didn't need the rest of America to acknowledge it for me to celebrate it. You know, and I don't need you to tell me that Black Lives Matter for me to know that my life matters. And I don't need you to be proud of being proud of black people for me to be proud of being black. I've never needed that, and that's how I was raised. But others do want that, and so that's what we're going to be trying to offer with those, because not everybody has the same mentality. I mean, I think I grew up with this thing being black and proud. That was like a '70s chant when I was a baby that I heard growing up, and so it was never negative to be black. To me, it was always just, that's who I am, and then I make the most of that. But we're in a different society now where I think there's a sensitivity that I have to learn. I didn't grow up being able to be sensitive in the 80s, 90s. This is what it was, and you lived and you adapted. But
Do you know Ray Duso?
I do know Ray. Yep. Well, he was at my wedding, by the way, and he danced. Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, he used to do the urban teaching thing at WLC,
Yep.
and I had a class with him once, and he took us to the inner core, and we had a restaurant, sit down at a restaurant, had some soul food and some real soul food and stuff like that. And he may have some additional ideas and stuff for things that might benefit you.
Yeah.
So.
It's my wife had Ray as a teacher, advisor in the art education program at WLC, and that's how he got invited to the wedding. I can't remember what his gift was. Anyway, but yeah, and so I know he's a resource that way. What I'm trying to be careful about is that the Center for Urban Teaching the teachers that come from it that haven't been experienced come out very much thinking that they've got to do it a certain way, and we got to break that enough to say these are good tools, but you're using all of them so that it's disheartening. But I think Ray would be a good resource because he's been in it, for a lifetime.
A resource and extra tools for your toolkit.
Yeah, definitely. So all that's on the table, yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions or suggestions? Yes, sir. He has his own mic.
Oh, look at that. I have my own microphone up here. Okay, so I guess whenever I'm talking with anyone about this sort of how to outreach to communities with different backgrounds than your own, the question that always comes up in my head is, how do you do that effectively without making it look like you're just trying to pander to someone to the point where you are actually doing more harm than good?
The first step, I think, is that you care about them, period. That you show concern and care. That the first time you mention Jesus to them shouldn't be the first time you say hi. Because you haven't built a relationship yet. You haven't laid any groundwork for them to trust you. You're throwing out Jesus' name, and it's a good name of all names, right? But they don't know you from Adam. And so I think the first thing is, are you invested even outside of that gospel truth about heaven? Am I going to that community? And Cinco de Mayo, you know where I'm at normally on Cinco de Mayo? Somewhere in the Mexican community, Hispanic community, having some burritos, and I'm invested in that moment for their thing, not for my thing. Too often times I think as missionaries, we think, let me set up this thing for them to come to, and once they come to my thing, then I can just blast them with the gospel, and we can do that. But what about their thing? Just going, hey, there's a funeral of a person in the neighborhood. Are we going to those? And hey, what brings you here? I'm a pastor. I'm a member of our church in the neighborhood. I just wanted to share with you that hurts all of us, and just want to be there for you. Just being there. I mean, that's so huge. And then, once they know you care, the way I sometimes said, if I know you love me, you can tell me anything. If I don't think you love me, I don't trust anything you have to say. So establish that love even beforehand, and then when something hard happens or something great happens, and you say, hey, I'm proud of you, they can believe that. When you say, hey, I want to help you, they believe that. But if you have an established relationship, I wouldn't expect them to want to do anything with you in reality. I mean, that's one of the problems that we have in our schools. We have all these teachers, most of them are white in our grade schools. There is a natural distrust of white people by black people because of historical events and activities. That's just a reality of people that have not mixed well. Some people are, so it's a generality, but if you grew up in the South, as most of my parents' generation did, and then migrated north, then you lived in the South with people that were outwardly racist to black people. You left that, you came here, and you still felt some of the stings of racism as it was an undercurrent. So now you're in a place where you've learned to do it by yourself on your own, and you don't trust white people because of historical past events. Now, is that good? No. Is that what God wants us to do? No, but that's the reality of how we live. And then you have white people who haven't met a black person other than on the TV screen and movies, and so all they think of are those stereotypes about us, so there's a lack of trust that way. So now you're in this school where you have this dynamic of white teacher, black student, and you have black parent. There's a whole lot of trust issues going on there. How do you get past that? And I think that's one of those things that just loving them, yeah.
I think that's one thing that I just love about all the work, the many years that I've been in Central City is that the parents begin to trust you because they know that you love their children through Christ. And I think, whether they become members of the church or whatever, the message is out there that they want their children to have. The children go home with this message also. And so there's a lot of education that way. And that's actually the main goal and of our mission is to see these people in heaven.
Yeah, and it's they know you love, in this case, their children, then they can trust you more. If they think you don't love their children, if you're just picking up a paycheck and going home, if you're just a dictator in the classroom, like, yeah, and so you got to work through that piece, but the trust is the issue. The thought, are you good? Okay. Yeah.
Will you be teaching a class at MLC?
Oh, yeah. So initially it said professor of English. And I talked to my old high school professor, Professor Taylor, and he said, if it's an English job, run for the hills. Because there's so much correcting in most English classes of papers. And no one likes correcting papers. Even those that do it don't like correcting papers. And I got the call, it's to teach interpersonal communications. So and the way I got the curriculum from Mark Paulson, and I think here's how I boil it down. How to talk to people without being a jerk. Most days I do that, so I think I can handle teaching that class. But if it was professor of English Lit and I got to correct papers, I'd have been like, no thanks, sorry, I don't want to do that. Professor Lang asked me when he first got the call at MLC, because he was already saying we need more diverse faculty and staff. He said, "You want to teach Fayed?" I said, "No, I don't. I like preaching. I like doing this." And so the Fayed wasn't where I wanted to be, and so I didn't even pursue that avenue with him. But I think this will be good. And then I'm hoping, if I have my way, then eventually I'll be teaching something in the minority cultures section of the curriculum. But this one seems to be a nice start. But the first semester, because I'll be shadowing or auditing Paulson's class, seeing how he does it. I hear great things about the class. And so I'm going to try to not reinvent the wheel, but take the wheel he has and just put my name on it somewhere and then go from there. Another thought?
Yeah. Well, I was at MLC, and then my first call was to the Apache Reservation in Arizona, and then I taught here for a year. And I think a really important thing that MLC could use, that you could bring when you teach interpersonal communication, is everything you've been talking with us about right now. Because, I don't know, the urban curriculum was just up and coming when I was there. Yeah. So I didn't take any classes. Not that I didn't have an interest, but I just didn't know that that's what the Lord had in store.
Right.
And the experiences I had with the Apache culture, and then moving here too, I've just grown as a person, with what you said, listening and learning first before anything at all. And building those relationships is just insurmountable with the tools you have in your tool belt, with not only connecting with the kids. I mean, I only had second grade, so they're normal 7. and 8-year-olds, but
Yeah.
it was just really meaningful to me. Yeah.
And I hope that's what we're doing. And I was scared when Amy first said faculty. I'm thinking, you want me to like bring in new faculty? But I get what you mean now. But that having there is a word that we know from the Bible and we talk about it, but we don't really trust it. The discernment. And discernment is the ability to use the knowledge you have to make wise choices based on what God's word has given you. So part of discernment we need to teach our students is that other views aren't evil. Other ways of doing things aren't evil. They just may be different. I did a talk a while back with, I don't know if you remember what your ma, think about your ma's kitchen. Okay, you got that in your head? Where's the fork and spoon and knife drawer in your ma's kitchen? And then if you think about to your auntie, your mom's sister's kitchens, were they the same? If they could, they probably were. Because they all grew up in the same house with the same mom that said, this is where silverware goes. And then you go to, then you get, so say you get married, you go all of a sudden to your in-laws' house, and it's like, why is it over there? That's not where it goes. It's supposed to be on the left side of the whatever, you know. So you get used to your thing. That's what culture is. I'm still doing it my way. The drawer goes over here, and it goes in this order, you know. And then this other drawer has this. And then now, and then how many of you use the bottom of the stove for actually cooking? No, that's for storing the flat stuff. So that's all part of like cultural things, like how you do stuff. It's how you like it or how you grew up with it. And when someone else does it differently, you think that's not right. You can walk around the kitchen going, "Who raised them? This isn't right." You know, it's supposed to have the flat stuff in that place. And in culture, if you take that attitude, then you look down on them and saying, not only is it not right, it's evil for them to have it that way. Instead of saying, that's just different. I can still get my knife and fork from over here. I mean, the first time I had, what was it, I don't know even what I'm going to call the right thing that, but Mexican corn on the cob, or Puerto Rican corn on the cob, where they put like mayonnaise on there. Yeah, I wasn't having any of that. That's not, it's butter and salt, period. I mean, all this other stuff. But then you go to a couple places, you try it, and you realize that, okay, it's not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst thing in the world, but it's a cultural thing, and that's okay for it to be different. I don't have to make it that way in my house. I'm not going to come to your house and tell you how to make your thing, and I can celebrate you in your thing. So, yeah, the exposure, and then the discernment, and that's why even with this whole conversation about the 1619 project. I've read through a lot of it. I don't like it's a theory, so I'm going to leave it on the theory lane. Some of the conclusions, I think, are off base. The facts of what happened in them are true. So you got to take that and be discerning. You don't take it all and go, you go, okay, so was there a distinction in the GI Bill for black veterans and white veterans? There was. That's not mentioned in our normal history text, but this one mentions it. So you bring it all together and you use discernment to teach that part, not just ignore it. And right now, too many, those of us on the conservative side, want to say, "Oh, it's just it's someone's theory." Let's leave it as someone's theory. It need not be that they have evil intent, although they might. I don't know, but can you learn from it? I mean, I read non-Lutheran commentaries of Scripture. I don't think I'm less biblically accurate. I'm using discernment. And our teachers can do that too. But you don't take it all and say, here's the curriculum. You say, it's a supplement because this thing brings up, and you add to. That's what good teachers do. They don't just take a curriculum and then shove it down the throat. You add your experience in your life and whatever else, and you teach. So, and if we would act that way and not be afraid of other people's ideas, there'd be less of this arguing and fighting. I wouldn't want to be in the curriculum. But there'll be things in there that I would use if I was teaching something about history of our country. And then the conclusions we draw are based on our understanding of who God is, not about a theory from those who don't believe in God or don't trust Him. But anyway, so yeah, so here's what I want to do when I get up there. One, I got to find out, do we have scholarships for minorities that say, hey, if you're going to come to MLC to be a teacher, we want to support you in that, so that after going through K through 12 education with free tuition, this sticker shock of college won't blow you away. So that's a reality. If you live in Milwaukee choice, Wisconsin choice now, you can go through K through 12 and not pay a dime. And now a whole college tuition's in your face? Forget about it. The other thing is the parents. I need to find a way to get the parents on board. Imagine your first semester of college and you're struggling. You call home and your mom says, just come home, baby, it's too hard. If they're not going to support you and help you get through this, that first semester, first year you come back, why would I go back, Mom? It's too hard. And then, or Mom and Dad or whatever. I had a neighborhood guy, St. Marcus Rat, Skip. Skip was a ball player that I think had a full ride out to somewhere west. I forgot, I thought maybe somewhere in Boise, Idaho somewhere. Had a full ride. Came back home for a break, never went back. Because it was just more comfortable, it was easier being at home. And I think our students at MLC kind of get this sometimes too. Like, it can be stressful being a minority and never being able to be exactly what you want to be. Like I tell this story, and I'll share this, and then I'll stop in a minute. But my first year at prep, when we had food in the cafeteria, I didn't eat the watermelon, and I never ate the fried chicken on campus. Not because I don't like fried chicken, not because I don't like watermelon. I don't want to reinforce stereotypes. So I'm now living not like I want to, because I don't want to give an image of things that I think are going to be negative for me personally. So that becomes a stressful thing for some people in a way that it harms them. Got through it. I don't cry for me. I had a great time at prep and in college, and so I wasn't going around going, "Wow, I was kids out here." No, I had a blast, and all my kids are going there. I wouldn't change it for the world. But I recognized that I was doing things that were part of me adapting and compensating for being not the part of the majority anymore. It can be stressful because it's kind of like guys, we don't have this problem so much, but women have this problem of, what do I wear outside? Is it going to accentuate the wrong thing or what I don't want to show someone? So that I'm going to change my dress so that I don't give the impression that I want this attention from someone else. Guys, we don't have that problem. We just slap on some clothes and we go, right? But I think women understand that more because they leave that day going, yeah, that doesn't fit right. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do this. And it's not because they're worried about how things fit so much. It's about how I'm going to view in the public when I wear this that exposes this more than that. And even though it's not inappropriate, someone might take it the wrong way. So I'm going to now have to stress over what I wear outside, or what I wear to my job, or what I wear on this date, or what I wear. And so as a minority kind of going, I got to kind of do that when I go anywhere. What I say matters. How I speak matters. And you try to use things that don't bring disrespect upon your culture. It sounds weird, but it's a total thing for that. Yeah, Neil.
Just a statement. I think that's going to be one of your biggest roles in asset to MLC is, well, you know this. About a year and a half ago, I think we lost 5 African-American students out there in one semester, my son of which was one. But part of that reasoning was they didn't felt they had anybody on campus who they could talk to about some of these things. So I think that's where your role is going to be huge. I mean, simple things like, these are college kids, but back when I was at prep and you were there with me, if we didn't get a haircut, we could not get a haircut in Watertown. So it was come home on the weekend just to get a haircut, you know? So taking those kids to Mankato, Twin Cities, getting them out of the New Ulm environment, I think will be huge.
Yeah. God helped me with that one, though, and took most of mine away. So God said, I got an answer for that for you. Yeah, Flex. Right.
But it doesn't just stop after high school, because what happens, like you said, kid goes to Boise, could be somebody that was mentoring him throughout high school, and then all of a sudden it's done after that, and they just,
Yeah.
I don't have that guy to talk to anymore now, and you move on.
Yeah.
So having that person that's there, that's a huge commitment, obviously. Ideally, maybe looking for somebody that's willing to sponsor a kid or mentor a kid throughout their time in college.
Yep. So I might need an assistant, just so you know. Yeah. Like so we don't have a whole lot of calls in multicultural settings in the Wells. We just planted a church in, was it Waukegan we saw in Wells Connection, you know, and so we have a Hispanic community there. But most times we don't go to the cities. We go outside the cities because that's the Walmart, or was it Kohl's you worked for, Amy? The Kohl's mentality. Outside of the city because better land, less people, whatever else. But we have churches in different areas. What if I could find a pastor in Denver that would say, you know, for the summer, send him out here, we can get him a job, and he can be seeing another community outside of their home, wherever that is, and not get dragged back down in. And then you got a mentor relationship, you know, that those are things that I've got to figure out how to get done. And I'll tell you truthfully, my best gift is not my organizational skills. So I'm an idea guy. Ideation is one of my things that's strengths finders. I like doing stuff, but putting things like on paper and like that's a pain in the butt. So I'd much rather just do it, but you can't do it all. And so you got to put it on paper and then go there. But that's just, man. Yeah, but those are things like is my job just to, okay, get them on campus, keep them on campus, support them after campus, right? Yes, yes, and yes. And to your question earlier, I'm sorry I skipped over it quickly, but that 98% of students that are of one race, one culture, can be a blessing to another school that's 98% of another culture. So I remember being, I think it was in third or fourth grade, we did a pen pal thing with this school, with a class that lived out in the farming neighborhood. So I had a pen pal. We traded pictures, and we wrote for about a year to this white guy who lived on a farm, and we got to know each other through pen pals. You could do that with another school. There's a church of Emmanuel Greenville, a friend of mine, Tim Dolan, is there now, and one of the members there said, how do we be a part of this? I said, we have churches in Milwaukee that would love to partner with you somehow. I don't know how to do that. Is it like a joint cookout? Do we exchange people, pastors? Do we bring each other together and worship? And not just, but that could be a help maybe. You know, if we have enough church, we have churches that are 98% white, that are 98% black. What if we brought them together and said, let's have a church picnic together? Because normally we come together around what? Sports. Wisco's gym is full, the basketball tournament. And Wisco's gym is full with schools that are rooting for their school only, and it becomes black versus white all too often when you get to the Final Four. Well, what about if we did something other than that and we worship together? So one Sunday, cancel atonement worship. Go up to a place where they have no black folks and say, we'd love to worship with you. Now, that doesn't work because, there's a whole thing about offerings and things, and guests come and then they get the door locked on them. So it's not easy, but that's the kind of thing you'd have to do, something that it takes that kind of effort to do and say, we've got to do more together than just giving our mission offerings. Church picnic, when do you have yours? Could you invite another congregation? Say, hey, come on down with us and be part of this. When is yours? We'll come be part of yours. And then all of a sudden we have people interact with each other, and it's not a stressful environment. It's just a cookout. We got some brats and dogs on the grill. Let's just hang out, And I think that would be one of those ways to do that in congregations. Hey, thanks for the time. That says 10:15. Is that on pause? Yeah, I keep thinking, man, that's a long minute. Yeah, but it's one of those smart watches that's not too smart. So it won't connect to my Bluetooth. So it's just for show right now. So, hey, thanks for sticking around. And if you have suggestions, I've got a new email now. But they got an old picture of me, like my college picture of like high school, like a junior year, where it's like it's a mugshot. So I got to get a new picture up there at MLC. But I did have hair. You saw, yeah, a little chain there. Anyway, send me any suggestions. If I knew the answers, I would share them. I don't know the answers. It's going to be a year or so or more of trial and fixing and struggling. So keep me in your prayers. Keep the college in your prayers, and may God bless the work. He will in this time. So God's blessings. Thanks for sticking around and sharing. Have a blessed rest of your week. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. John, right? Josh. So which line are you from there? Mike, yep. Yeah.